I will tell a bit about Wot Batu. So Wot Batu is actually an art installation made by Mr. Sunario, one of the prominent artists of Indonesia, and he's also the owner of Selasar Sunario Art Space. And in Wot Batu, the main thing that Mr. Sunario tries to talk about is actually spirituality. And it explains why the title is Wot Batu. Wat means bridge, Batu means stones. So it is a stone bridge. Why bridge? Because Mr. Sunario wants anyone that comes to Wot Batu connects their soul to their spirituality. And in here, we are in the gate of Wot Batu. Right here, you can see there is a smooth part that actually from the help of machine. Why Mr. Sunario put it in here is like when I want to introduce myself, I would like to offer my hand and ask for a handshake. And it's like the offer from Wot Batu. If you really want to get to know Wot Batu, please welcome. Just like what it says there, Wilujeng Sumping. Welcome in Sundani. I'll continue right here. So everything in Wot Batu has its own meaning. Like here, the pebbles underneath us is actually put right here so we could really hear our own footsteps. So at the end, where we actually enter Wot Batu, we could really tell the difference about the from the outside world of Wot Batu to the inside of Wot Batu. And right here, what we saw is the first work in Wot Batu. So it's actually called the Abah Stone and Ambu Stone. Abah and Ambu in Sundanese means father and mother. So it actually talks about man and woman, male and female. And it's actually related to the sayings in Hindu, the Lingga and Yoni. And a lot of the things in Wot Batu didn't really planned by Mr. Sunario at the beginning. Just like both of these stones, this one came from Bali and this one came from India. As we know, it is important places for the Hindu. And in the part where at the Ambu stone, where it talks about female, as you can see, there's a little hole that was filled with water. Why Mr. Sunario made this? Because he wants to point out the symbolizations of female as the symbol of fertility. Because water is the source of life. And right there we have the praying room for the Muslims. But you could take a pic to in front part. It's actually somebody's praying inside. But at the front part, there's a glass that was carved at the Al-Fatiha, the first thing that you saw on the Quran. So why there is a Al-Fatiha? Of course, to remind anyone that prays here. But on top of that, there's actually a small stone, a small black stone that took from the Hiro Cave. So Hiro Cave is where the Prophet Muhammad got his first saying. A lot of people ask how Mr. Sunario could take the thing from the holy land of Mecca. But actually, Mr. Sunario believes that if we have good intentions, at the end we will reach it. So Mr. Sunario really wants to connect us, anyone that came to Wot Batu, to the holy land of Mecca. And at the end, Mr. Sunario himself is still healthy and about to have another exhibition, and the stone itself is safely placed inside the musola. And right there, we have the contemplating stone. Has anyone tried to sit on here? You can? One of you, maybe? So, yeah, you can try to sit on here. So it was ergonomically shaped, following the shape of our body. So anyone that sit on here could feel really comfortable. And why Mr. Sunario tried to make it and put it at this point, because from this point we could see most of Wot Batu. Almost every part of Wot Batu we could see from this point.
Okay. Yeah, this is beautiful.
Silahkan kalau mau coba.
Iya, pas banget.
So actually, even if a kid try to sit on here, they will also feel comfortable.
That's good.
Silahkan kalau mau coba.
Pasti dicobain dulu.
Biasanya kalau belum disampaikan emang jarang
Jarang ada yang
akhirnya emang beneran duduk gitu. Malah kadang gue taruh barang.
Iseng deh, pasti mau dipegang.
Apa dicemplungin?
Kotor anjir ya kan.
Kasar.
So actually, yes, not all of the work in Wot Batu has its own titles, but everything in Wot Batu put by Mr. Sunario, as like he would like to say that these stones that actually moves him. It's not him that moves the stone. So like these stones right here, it was actually put right here. Mr. Sunario didn't have any intention to put it like that, but actually at the end, as you can see, it was following the shape of the tree.
Ah, okay.
So
It's
it's like
leaning, yeah?
like
Leaning side.
maybe the moral part that we could take from this stones right here is that the nature has its own way
Way.
to show us where the good is,
Yeah.
just like these stones. And here we have the brown stones that in the bottom, and some of the stones was attached to the wall. It's actually representing the earth and the skies. So it shows that there's a distance between this earth and the sky. And as we continue right here, there is a stage of life. If you want to step on this, cool. So in the stage of life, Mr. Sunario tries to tell us a story about how human, the journey of our life from birth until we're about to enter the next chapter of our life. So here, the first stone right here talks about birth. It's called Indung stones. Indung means mother too. So Indung stones, why Mr. Sunario make it as the symbol of birth? Because he thinks that we were all born from a mother. So we should take mother as a symbol of the birth. And here it is a guava tree that actually Mr. Sunario planted by himself at his own backyard back then. When his mother fell sick, he really wants to give a gift of guavas because guava is one of the favorite fruits of his mother. But unfortunately, before this tree has grown like this and has produced some fruits, Mr. Sunario's mother has passed away. So it's like the last thing that really reminds him of his mother. That's why he put it here. And because it tells a story, so after we were born, we will try to connect with others. We will gain some relations that actually works horizontally as human to human, and that works vertically. That was represented by that stone right there. Because the horizontal part talks about human to human, and the vertical part talks about human to God. And and the last work in the stage of life. After we were done with all of these, we will try afterwards. The next journey is to enter the afterlife. So here is a symbol of a vehicle that we will use to enter that life. It is actually shaped like a yacht, and in here you can see some holes, and he chopped it into two pieces because he wants to make these stones feel a bit more lighter, because it was too heavy at the first time. When he saw this, he wants to really picture that the journey should be an easy journey for us to enter the next chapter of our life. And so what we have right here is the lawang batu or the lawang stone. So lawang in Javanese means door. So it's like to really separate the part where where shows the life that we live right now and the afterlife. And there, as you can see, there's a fingerprint of Mr. Sunaryo's finger. So, he put it right there using a carved by machine.
Okay.
And
A thumbprint?
yep,
Thumbprint.
yeah. And as you can see, in most of these stones, it has all of them has a touch of machines, like that scratches at that stone, or this part where it was smoothened. Yep. The reason behind that is because Mr. Sunaryo, he thinks that if the next generation, maybe 200 years after us right now, found these works that he made, they will know that this was the work that was made by the people at our time right now, where the technology has been really crazy maybe, but this is to really make a point about this. This is the work of our period right now. And that was maybe also the reason why Mr. Sunaryo uses his fingerprint. Because fingerprint, as we know, is one of the things that we use daily right now in our phones and everything. And right here, have you guys entered the firestone?
No, what's in it?
You can take a look inside. There's a small fire. Udah lihat belum? So actually, Mr. Sunaryo made these firestones to complete all of the main elements in the nature. That is the wind, the water, the earth, and finally the fire. And Mr. Sunaryo haven't really talked about why he only lit a little fire. But us that was working in here, take it as maybe because fire, as small as it is, we can really feel the energy of the fire. It could make everything more clear, or we can really feel the warmth of that small fire. So that is one element that actually we need, but in some cases maybe we're afraid of. And here, we have batu air, or the water stone. So a lot of the visitors that came to Wot Batu, when they saw this work, the first thing that they said was that actually is very beautiful. or it's actually very peaceful, because those are actually the main things that Mr. Sunario tried to talk about the afterlife, because he tried to picture it as a beautiful thing, the time where we could reflect our the things that we've done in the past, and actually it is very peaceful. So unlike the things that we saw in movies maybe or in books where they try to scare us, but in here he really wants to picture it as a beautiful. Right.
Is there any meaning of a stone?
So actually, Mr. Sunario, like I said before, he put everything intuitively. There's never really a reason behind it. But one of the also prominent artists of Indonesia, Mr. Ade Pirus, he's one of he's actually the lecturer of Mr. Sunario himself. When he came to Wot Batu, he saw this and he reads it as altitude. So ALTITUD. But maybe in English there has an E,
Yeah.
but we take it maybe it's from Latin, altitude. And actually in some beliefs in Indonesia, the altitude itself takes as a sacred place. So it's like maybe Mr. Sunario didn't realize it at the first place, but he tried to really point again about this place should be a sacred place. And we could continue to that bridge, that little bridge right here. So as I said before, Wot Batu means stone bridge. So this is the micro Wot Batu, all of the macro Wot Batu. This is the mini Wot Batu. And in here it connects the right side of Wot Batu to the left side of Wot Batu. So why Mr. Sunario separates the Wot Batu? Because all of the works that was in the right side of Wot Batu actually representing the right side of the brain, and all of the works on the left side of Wot Batu representing the left side of the brain. So some of the people maybe says that some the works at the right side of Wot Batu is a bit more abstract, and at the left side of Wot Batu is a bit more logical. Just like the work right here. Mohon maaf kerumput.
Oh nggak boleh.
So actually, what we saw right here is the map stones. It shows where Wot Batu is. It is in Bukit Pakar, and these are all of the mountains that surrounds Bukit Pakar, or actually it surrounds Bandung. And here you could tell where the east, and there was the west, where the sun rises and where the sun sets from this drawing. So from this work, it also related to when Mr. Sunario really wants all the works in Wot Batu to be. You okay?
Sorry.
Is it okay if I continue?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this work right here is actually, like I said before, Mr. Sunario thinks if the next generation found this work, they could tell that in 2015 these are the geographical condition of West Java. And all of the work in Wot Batu came from Batu Pakar. To really point out that all of this work was actually made by a man named Sunario in 2015. Have you guys go to the audiovisual room?
No, not yet.
Okay, we will go downstairs.
Go downstairs?
now is actually how Mr. Sunario tries to picture the development of the Earth from the beginning. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think
Something.
something went wrong. So maybe I will just explain that actually all the parts in this video installations, was took from Mr. Sunario's painting. So all of the elements was took from hundreds and hundreds of his paintings and his sketches. And in here, what Mr. Sunario tried to tell us about is how big the space in our life is. Actually, the whole entire universe. At the beginning, he uses the theory that was said by Stephen Hawking, the Big Bang Theory, and right now is how the development of the Earth. And we're getting to the end of the video. So after this, you will see that the Earth is actually really small compared to the other things on the whole entire universe. So one of the moral story from this part is actually to shows that us humans should always be a humble person, because we are actually only a small particle compared to all of the things that is going on the whole entire universe. And it's actually, that's the reason why this room is it's so small and so dark, to really show again that moral story.
So small.
We could continue again.
Thank you. You're a pride person, you know, you can get your meaning.
Kenapa? Nggak mau.
Bagian kecil.
Aku mau jadi yang paling gedenya. Tapi tadi kalau lagi sendirian serem sih, tiba-tiba mati. Hah?
Gelap banget soalnya.
Itu tiba-tiba mati aja listrik.
So this work is called Batu 10.
Batu 10.
Batu 10.
Ten.
Yeah. 10 stones. 10 means stone. I'm sorry, 10 means 10. And in here is a compilation of 10 stones that was arranged vertically to again show the connection between us and the God. And it shows how big the power of the gravity that makes us still right here on the earth. And actually it has no real support, so it really shows that the gravity is working on this work right here. And because of the 10 stones, some visitors has came to Wot Batu and said that this reminds them of the 10 commandments. But again, Mr. Sunario himself never really intended to tell that. You can see that there is a diagonal line that crosses Wot Batu, start from that part until that part of Wot Batu. This diagonal line actually at the first time put by Mr. Wot Batu for an aesthetic reason. But one of Mr. Sunaryo's friend came by at that time and asked what is this line? He answered that it is just for an aesthetic reason. But he's actually mastering in astronomy, and he said that this leads to Kaabah. Kaabah. For the Muslims, it is the direction where we pray. And this was actually going until the praying room at the front. And as you can see, there's a tree right here that actually shaped around it. So again, Mr. Sunaryo actually chose this tree because he thinks that it's only for the aesthetic reason. But one of the Mr. Sunaryo's friend came by and asked, why don't Mr. Sunaryo really try to get to know each of the trees? And at the end, we found out that that tree right there is actually still one family with the Bodhi tree, which for the Buddhists is very sacred for them. And actually at that point, it is where all of the things in Wot Batu get balanced. At that tree right there. And here is the next work. It's called the Seke stone. Seke is actually spring water. So the water that goes from the Batu Seke flows until the water stones that talks about the afterlife, and at the end it's circulated again inside the Seke stone. So it shows us that our life didn't really end at this life, or what we thought is the end of the end, that is the afterlife. But it will always move, and some of the people say that this reminds them of the reincarnation. And as we continue right here, we will see the work that talks about the time. You could enter this part. So here is actually, there's an installation that was inspired by the machine inside the clock. So it always moves because we use the energy from the sun. And it shows that how time works, that it always moves, never really slow nor really fast, just like these machines right here. And in here, we see that there's a saying, Hananguni hanamangke, tan hananguni tan hanamangke. In Indonesian, the meaning was, bila ada sekarang, maka ada nanti. Bila tidak ada sekarang, maka tidak ada nanti. So the point is, if we have good intention and we do it right now, as small or as big it is, it will have an impact in the future. It will be useful. But if we don't have it right now, we won't have it in the future. And it was actually an ancient Sundanese saying.
Oh, Indonesian?
Sundanese.
Sundanese. Saya orang Sunda ya tahu.
Tapi ada yang bilang katanya mirip-mirip sama yang sekarang.
Saya pikir Jawa.
Enggak, ini malah Sunda.
Hananguni, hanamangke. So if there is a, what say again in Indonesian?
Bila ada sekarang, maka ada
If there is
nanti.
now, so there will be later, future.
What we do now
What we do now
influences
influences what
what happens
happened, but if you don't do anything, you won't have any
in the
happening.
future. There won't be any future.
In the future, that's right.
And here we have
Different
entered the last word in Wot Batu.
Sorry.
It is actually called the Prasasti stone. So in this work, we saw that there's a poem that was gifted by Mr. Anies Baswedan, the Minister of Education and Culture, at the time when Mr. Sunario opens Wot Batu. So he gave this as a gift, and the poem says that you were born to show the work of humanity. A man named Sunario in 2015 has shown his imaginations to stroke your imagination. Catch and show that you could also show the work of your time, like how Wot Batu has actually went that barrier to get to you. To get has passed the barrier of the time to get to you. And right here, it's like the last thing that Mr. Sunario tries to put in the works of Wot Batu. It is actually related to the sayings where there's nothing such as an emptiness and such as a fulfillment. There will always be a balance between them. So that's why this part is crafted, and this part is actually, you can see that, you can tell that it was different.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
the guiding.
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry if my English wasn't really good.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Very
You
good.
could take rest in Balai Batu,
Yeah.
and you could see some of the collection of Mr. Sunario in here. And okay, please enjoy.
Thank you.
Do you want me to take the refreshment drink?
Do you have any drink? Any water or anything? Yes.
Oke, udah dapat. Ini udah. Oke.